If you Google the term sore loser right now, we're 90% sure that Nick Kyrgios' face is going to show up. Think we're being harsh? Well, hang on for a few minutes, as in today's video, we'll explain to you what recently went down in the US Open. The mix of unnecessary yelling, cursing, and some pretty petty protests are definitely going to change your mind. So what are we waiting for? Let's jump right in. First up, let's see what all the fuss is about. Todd Woodbridge, the legendary tennis player, has called for an end to this bizarre show Kyrgios put up at the US Open. The Australian, during a broadcast on Channel 9, said that this sort of behavior wasn't at all healthy, nor was it going to help the player score points in any way. And if you guys saw his performance during the Open, then we're pretty sure that you'll also be agreeing with Woodbridge. The former player even went on to suggest that Nick Kyrgios' inner circle should literally walk out on him if he shows such behavior. This inner circle includes the tennis player's social media influencer girlfriend, Kostine Hatzi, as well. Yikes! He specifically said that such behavior is not helpful and it's not healthy. We're sure you're wondering what happened that led to this remark. Let's learn more about what happened during the Open. During his showdown against Benjamin Bonzi, 27-year-old Kyrgios seemed to be rather worked up. None of this pent-up energy was directed towards his play as it should have been. But for some reason, he thought that it'll pay off well if he made the people sitting in his box the primary target of his rage. And yup, among them was his girlfriend as well. That's extremely terrible, isn't it? Other people sitting next to Hatzi were Kyrgios' physiotherapist and a close friend of the player. Now, this is a situation where any normal person would have been thankful for the supporters, but apparently the Australian is built differently. He even went on to yell, "Go home if you're not going to effing support me, bro." This type of language, of course, earned him a code violation, but sadly didn't make his supporters go away. Well, kudos to them for staying, but to be honest, they should have listened to the player and gone home. If you ask us, Woodbridge's advice makes total sense. It's high time that the player's supporters took some action regarding this entire fiasco. They should definitely have walked out on him after he yelled at them the first time. Okay, now those of you supporting Kyrgios might say that the match wasn't anything less than a roller coaster. The man evidently lost control in the middle, and the win almost slipped from his hand. So yeah, he was riding high on emotions, and maybe the player just went with the flow and said the first thing that came to his mind. But wait a moment and think about this. What sort of a person directs their rage at their supporters when they see they start performing badly? A sportsman at least should never ever do this. But Nick Kyrgios thought otherwise and went ahead with this not-so-wise decision. Interestingly, Kyrgios seems to have made this a habit. This was particularly evident in the match last Thursday when the player kept on turning towards his courtside spectators, demanding more cheers. Who's going to be the one to tell him that this isn't really how cheering works? Following up on his abominable behavior on the courts. Spitting on the court while stressing over the match makes sense, but doing that to show disregard for the fans is a pretty disrespectful thing to do. Maybe that's what Kyrgios was aiming for when he did that during the game, but this behavior doesn't make total sense. Don't worry, the man was actually given a code violation for his unsportsmanlike behavior. Fortunately for the Australian, instead of asking him to stop playing and taking anger management classes, the chair umpire decided to look away for the remaining match. One possible explanation for that is maybe they were too shocked, but still, we think that if a couple more violations were handed out during the game, it wouldn't have been totally unfair. And this isn't all. Seems like the man was able to find every possible excuse to blame his performance on everyone other than himself. Later in the game, the player even had the audacity to approach the chair umpire, Jaume Compistol, complaining that he was unable to play well due to the marijuana smoke coming from the crowd. This is just too bizarre, and we're sure that the umpire had a good laugh at this later. Lastly, this has happened before, and it's probably gonna happen again. Previously, the player has tried to normalize his seriously questionable behavior by stating that engaging with his audience gives him the energy needed to get through the match. But we're of the opinion that he just uses this as an excuse to snarl at them when things get bad. Even Tom Woodbridge thinks that it's a waste of time being like that. The tennis star was pretty clear during the broadcast, stating that they don't really have anything to do with what goes down in the courts. He believes that it's up to Nick to make the shots and hit the plays. During Wimbledon's final last July, Kyrgios demanded that a fan fan should be removed from the center court at the All England Club, as according to him, she had consumed 700 drinks and was drunk out of her mind. Along with this, the player was even fined $10,000 after he spat in the fans' direction during Wimbledon's first round. So maybe this should serve as a warning for everyone else before they go to his next match. And Nick Kyrgios definitely needs to consider taking some anger management classes. Woodbridge also holds the opinion that this is some pretty dangerous territory that the player is moving towards. If he makes a habit out of yelling at his poor fans, then he probably won't make it far into the US Open, which ultimately is injustice to himself. But maybe he needs a wake-up call to snap him out of all this. That's all we have for Kyrgios and his sports rage. Let's catch you up with some other news items related to the player. First up, we've got the battle for the US Open champ between Kyrgios and Medvedev. Medvedev has a Kyrgios-named thorn in the road to maintain his world #1 Pepperstone ATP ranking. The Russian has already suffered an unfortunate defeat at the hands of his opponent at the ATP Masters 1000 event last month. And if the outcome of his future match is anything like before then, he's going to find himself surrendering his #1 title to Kyrgios. Medvedev vows to do his best in order to defend his crown, and his previous performance makes it seem like it's going to be easy for the 26-year-old. The Russian was able to win back-to-back US Opens and has become the first player to do so after Roger Federer. With the player advancing to the 4th round without dropping a single set in his first week, everyone's got expectations riding high. But Kyrgios is here to play as well. The Wimbledon finalist has charged into the 4th round of US Opens with full determination and an overall improvement in his performance. Let's see what the upcoming match holds for the two players. Moving on, the biggest fine of the 2022 US Open has been dispatched, and we all know who it's for. Yes, of course, it's Kyrgios. The player presently is finding himself, quite deservedly, if we might add, facing a fine worth $7,500 for his rude actions in his second-round match at the US Open. This news comes after his bizarre behavior during the match, where he practically blamed his supporters for his terrible performance. But one question begs to be asked: is this really going to make a difference? Previously, during Wimbledon, the player received a fine of more than the current amount, $10,000 to be exact, but he obviously never learned the lesson. So maybe it's time that some serious action was taken in order to keep him from doing such things again. Lastly, the fan removed from court during Wimbledon will be taking legal action against the player. Well, it's good to know that someone will finally be standing up against him. Anna Paulus, a tennis fan, was temporarily removed from the center court by Kyrgios during the Wimbledon finals. She'll be bringing up defamation proceedings against Kyrgios. During the match, complained that she was distracting him. He went on to state that Paulus was extremely intoxicated. The fan, in her statement, has called these allegations to be reckless and entirely baseless. She also stated that they had even caused a lot of distress to her family, as they were broadcasted internationally for the whole world to see. Paulus states that she's taking this action to keep such behavior from being repeated, and recent events had proved to us that this is actually quite necessary. More importantly, any damages recovered will be donated to charity. Well, we're really interested to see how things work out for her. That's a wrap for this video, folks. Let us know your thoughts on Kyrgios and his rage problems. Do you think he'll stop this behavior soon enough? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like our video and subscribe to our channel for similar content. See you in the next one.